you can, but you're going to have to try and tighten up your belts even more. The cost of food is going up, and the country's consumer food price inflation has spiked to 7.8%. That's the quickest pace since March 2017. So let's find out if there will be any, respite from Wandile Stoba from the Agricultural Business Chamber. Wandile, thank you so much for your time, and good morning to you. This quick spike that we're seeing here, what informs it, moving to 7.8% from 6.3% in the previous month?
Tumelo, let me make 2 points to explain the key drivers here. And first is that we've been in a period of rising food prices generally, and that's not the story that it's unique to South Africa, and it's not a story that is isolated only to the Russia-Ukraine war. But if you think about 2020, 2021, prices have been in a general upside, and that has a lot to do with droughts in other parts of the world. You think of South America, you think of Indonesia, and also the rising demand for agricultural products in China. Those are some of the key things that, as a small and interlinked country to the global market, South Africa, we've been experiencing. And of course, the recent issues related to the droughts, to the Russia-Ukraine war, have been an added factor on that. And I think as a second point, you are right that we will likely see a bit of a prolonged increase in certain products. If you think about those that are grain related and vegetable oil, sunflower seed oil that people are using in cooking daily, those are some of the products that I think will be elevated for quite a while. And we think this uptick in food price inflation, at least up until July, it's likely to remain at those higher levels. Then you will see it softening for the better part of the year.
Yeah, Wandile, when we talk about prolonged, steep prices, especially when it comes to our food and our food basket particularly, how long are we talking here? I think South Africans are in a bit of an anxiety phase where they're not sure if they can go on any longer with the cost of food at this pace. So are we talking months? Are we talking maybe years?
This is, Tumelo, a global issue. And I think everyone would agree that at least for the year, this is likely to be the story. And I think we must, Tumelo, it would be fair for me and you to explain that when we talk about food price inflation, which is at 7.8, we're basically speaking about the rate at which prices are increasing. When we say from round about July going forward, we expect food price inflation to soften, we not necessarily mean the actual prices on the retail level will be declining, but the pace at which prices are increasing will likely to soften. But I think the South Africa story, Tumelo, is also different if you compare it with any other parts of the world, in a sense that the grain-related products, bread, maize meal, vegetable oils, are the component that we expect to remain elevated. But if you think about the fruit, vegetable, and some red meat, we could even see those actual prices coming down from the levels that we are in, more so in the second part of the year. And there's a number of factors that cause South Africa to be different from the world, in a sense that we have a large fruit harvest. Some of it used to be exported to the Black Sea area, Russia, Ukraine, and now we cannot go there. It increases our supply. On a meat perspective, we have this foot and mouth disease. While it's not killing animals per se in large scale, but it means that South Africa can no longer be exporting some of the red meat to the world, at least temporarily. And that increases the supply of meat to an extent domestically. And we expect it to add some softening in the meat prices. So you have that story, but the headline number, the story remains that it could only start to soften somewhere from July going forward.
Yeah, when we talk about food getting pricey, we often talk about the consumer, but also you mentioned there the import and export of food. What's been the impact on, farmers, food producers, and how are they faring so far?
The farmer story is really these are rising input costs. If you think about fuel and you think about fertilizer, those are the most important costs. I mean, just take, for example, a maize farmer. About 35% of their input cost is fertilizer, 13% is fuel, and you have agrochemicals. All those are rising because South Africa imports a large proponent of that. I mean, fertilizer, roughly 80%, 98% of agrochemicals, all of those are imported. But the important story, though, is that farmers are price takers. takers. They're not really transferring that cost directly to the consumer, which is why the dynamics for the consumer tends to be slightly different when we're looking at it in this perspective. And I guess the important point to emphasize also, to Melo, is that for South Africa, we are fortunate in a sense that we're not expecting any necessarily food shortages where we run out of certain products. We have sufficient supplies, but the inescapable issue is the general rise in certain products prices, which is in line with the global story, but not necessarily unique to South Africa.
Well, Wandile, I appreciate you speaking to me this morning and also bringing clarity on what's happening not only to the food price, but the pace at which we are seeing these increases. Agricultural Business Chamber of SA Chief Economist Wandile Slobo, thank you for your time this morning.